Unveiling the Truth, Conspiracies That Shook the World, Part 2. Welcome to Facts Intrigue, where the veil of secrecy is pulled back to reveal the hidden truths that shape our world. Today, we embark on a journey through some of the most astonishing conspiracy theories that, though once dismissed as mere speculation, have proven to be chillingly true. These stories, steeped in shadow and mystery, range from clandestine government operations to bizarre rituals among the world's elite. Each tale we uncover today reminds us that the line between fact and fiction is often thinner than we might believe. So, settle in as we explore the hidden corners of history in Unveiling the Truth, Conspiracies That Shook the World, Part 2. Starting with Segment 1, Mass Surveillance and the Watchful Eye of the Government. We begin with a story so embedded in our modern reality that it feels almost obvious. The government's omnipresent eye, watching our every move. In an age where technology reigns supreme, we live in a world where nearly every action we take can be tracked, traced, and recorded. And the truth is, you are never far from a camera or device that could be watching you. But the unsettling part of this story lies in the fact that much of this surveillance is happening without our explicit knowledge or consent. Consider the smartphone in your hand, the laptop on your desk, or the security cameras on every corner. These everyday technologies, meant to make life more convenient and secure, are also potential tools for constant monitoring. Your phone tracks your location. Your laptop has a webcam that can be accessed remotely, and even the microphones in your smart devices could be activated without your knowledge. What was once the realm of science fiction is now our lived reality. The extent of this surveillance became more widely known in 2013 when whistleblower Edward Snowden leaked classified information from the National Security Agency, NSA. These leaks revealed that the US government, alongside intelligence agencies from other nations, had been conducting mass data collection on an unprecedented scale. Through programs like PRISM, the NSA was able to access personal information from major tech companies, including emails, phone records, and internet browsing history. The breadth of the surveillance was staggering, encompassing not just suspected criminals, but ordinary citizens, blurring the lines between national security and personal privacy. In fact, it's not just governments that engage in surveillance. Corporations are equally invested in gathering data on users, often for commercial purposes. Through the use of cookies, trackers, and algorithms, companies can monitor our online behavior, collecting data on everything from the websites we visit to the purchases we make, and even the things we say in voice-activated apps like Siri or Alexa. This information is then sold to advertisers or used to target us with personalized ads. While this may seem harmless, it raises significant concerns about how our personal data is used and who has access to it. As the digital world expands, so too does the potential for surveillance. Facial recognition technology, which is now used in everything from unlocking your phone to scanning crowds at public events, can identify individuals in seconds. It's becoming a tool for law enforcement, but critics warn that it could be used for more sinister purposes, such as tracking political dissidents or suppressing social movements. In cities like London and New York, CCTV networks are extensive, creating a near-constant state of observation in public spaces. But perhaps the most unnerving aspect of mass surveillance is how invisible it can be. Modern surveillance technologies operate silently, often without any indication that they are in use. Advanced spyware can activate your phone's camera or microphone remotely, and malware can turn your devices into tools for eavesdropping. In some cases, governments have been caught using surveillance techniques to monitor political opponents or activists, raising concerns about the erosion of civil liberties in the name of security. While the justification for mass surveillance is often framed as a necessary measure to prevent terrorism, cybercrime, or other security threats, many question whether this level of intrusion is justified. The debate between security and privacy has intensified in recent years, with privacy advocates arguing that the balance has tipped too far in favor of surveillance. Laws and regulations have been put in place to try to limit some of these powers, but the reality is that technology continues to outpace the laws designed to regulate it. Ultimately, we must ask ourselves, at what cost does this surveillance come? Is our safety worth the constant monitoring of our daily lives? As the tools of surveillance become ever more advanced, and as technology continues to seep into every corner of our existence, we may find ourselves living in a world where privacy is no longer a given, but a luxury of the past. In this age of mass surveillance, the question is not whether we are being watched, but how closely. Now on to segment 2. The infamous Watergate scandal, a president's fall from grace. Our journey now takes us back to 1972, to an office complex that became the epicenter of one of the most notorious political scandals in American history, the Watergate scandal. What began as a seemingly routine break-in at the Democratic National Committee, DNC, headquarters inside the Watergate office complex would soon unravel into a web of conspiracy, deception, and abuse of power, leading to the first and only resignation of a US president. The story starts on June 17, 1972, when 5 men were arrested for breaking into the DNC offices in Washington, D.C. At first glance, it appeared to be a simple burglary, but as investigations began, it became clear that this was no ordinary crime. The burglars were found to have ties to the Committee to Re-elect the President, commonly referred to as CREEP, a fundraising organization working to ensure the re-election of then-President Richard Nixon. The break-in was part of a larger effort by the Nixon administration to gather intelligence on political opponents and manipulate the upcoming election. The scandal quickly escalated when it was discovered that the break-in was just the tip of the iceberg. As reporters from the Washington Post, Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein began investigating, they uncovered a widespread campaign of political espionage and sabotage. These activities were not limited to the Watergate break-in. They included wiretapping opponents, stealing documents, and other illegal activities designed to give the Nixon administration an edge over its political rivals. At the heart of the scandal was a covert operation run by Nixon's inner circle, known as the Plumbers, tasked with stopping or plugging leaks of information that could damage the administration. This group had previously been involved in attempts to discredit opponents and critics of the Nixon administration. Their efforts were meant to ensure Nixon's political survival by any means necessary, and they were willing to break the law to achieve their goals. As investigations continued, it became clear that the White House was involved in orchestrating and covering up the Watergate break-in. The turning point came when it was revealed that President Nixon had secretly recorded all conversations held in the Oval Office. These tapes became key evidence in proving Nixon's direct involvement in the scandal. Nixon fought to keep the tapes out of the hands of investigators, citing executive privilege, but the Supreme Court ultimately ruled in the United States versus Nixon that the president must release the tapes. The contents of the tapes were damning. They revealed that Nixon had not only been aware of the break-in, but had actively participated in covering it up. The tapes showed Nixon instructing his aides to obstruct the FBI's investigation and attempt to use the CIA to derail the inquiry. Clear evidence of abuse of power and obstruction of justice. The political fallout from Watergate was immense. As public outrage grew, and with mounting pressure from Congress, President Nixon faced certain impeachment. Knowing that he would likely be removed from office, Nixon made the unprecedented decision to resign on August 8, 1974. The next day, Vice President Gerald Ford was sworn in as president and famously declared, "Our long national nightmare is over." While Nixon avoided impeachment, many of his top aides were not so fortunate. Nearly 70 individuals were indicted, and many were convicted of crimes ranging from perjury to obstruction of justice. These included some of the most powerful figures in the administration, such as John Mitchell, Nixon's former Attorney General, and H.R. Haldeman, Nixon's Chief of Staff. The Watergate scandal not only led to the downfall of a presidency, but also had a lasting impact on American politics. It exposed deep flaws in the way political campaigns were conducted and revealed the extent to which a sitting president could manipulate the system to maintain power. In the wake of the scandal, Congress enacted a series of reforms designed to increase transparency and accountability in government. These included the establishment of new campaign finance laws, stricter regulations on political fundraising, and increased oversight of the executive branch. Watergate also had a profound effect on the public's trust in government. Before the scandal, many Americans had believed in the integrity of their leaders. But after Nixon's resignation, trust in the presidency and in government institutions plummeted. The notion that even the highest office in the land could be corrupted by power was a sobering realization for many, and the effects of this erosion of trust are still felt today. The legacy of Watergate serves as a reminder of the importance of a free press, checks and balances in government, and the accountability of public officials. It also demonstrates the dangers of unchecked political power and the lengths to which some will go to hold on to it. The Watergate scandal stands as a critical moment in US history, one that reshaped the nation's political landscape and left an indelible mark on the presidency itself. Now on to segment 3. Operation Snow White, the largest infiltration of the US government. In the 1970s, a religious organization known for its controversial practices executed the largest known infiltration of the US government ever recorded. What makes this conspiracy even more astonishing is that it wasn't orchestrated by a foreign intelligence service or rival nation, but by the Church of Scientology, a group that, under the direction of its founder L. Ron Hubbard, was determined to shield itself from scrutiny and criticism by any means necessary. This covert operation would come to be known as Operation Snow White. The Church of Scientology, founded in the 1950s, had grown increasingly powerful by the 1970s, but with that growth came increasing scrutiny from various government agencies. These agencies, including the Internal Revenue Service, IRS, the FBI, and the Department of Justice, had collected information on Scientology's controversial practices, including tax evasion, fraudulent activity, and other potentially damaging information. The Church perceived this as a direct threat to its legitimacy and existence. L. Ron Hubbard, feeling persecuted by what he viewed as an unjust government campaign against his organization, devised a plan to eliminate any and all negative government records on Scientology. Operation Snow White was the result of that effort. A massive, highly organized infiltration of US government offices designed to remove or destroy any files that could damage the Church's reputation or hinder its operations. The Church set up its own intelligence agency called the Guardian's Office, which oversaw the operation and was tasked with protecting Scientology from external threats. At its peak, this office employed thousands of members worldwide, many of whom were dedicated to carrying out covert operations, including surveillance, infiltration, and sabotage. Under the direction of Mary Sue Hubbard, L. Ron Hubbard's wife and second-in-command, the operation began in earnest in 1973. Scientology operatives, many of whom were devout members of the Church, infiltrated over 136 government agencies, foreign embassies, and private organizations. These agents weren't just stealing information. They were wiretapping phones, breaking into offices, copying and altering government documents, and even sabotaging investigations. Some members managed to gain employment within these agencies, giving them access to sensitive files. One of the most audacious aspects of the operation was the sheer scope of it. In addition to infiltrating US government agencies, Scientology operatives also targeted Interpol, the British government, and other international entities that held information on the Church. The goal was singular: to eliminate all negative information, ensuring that no record of any past or ongoing investigation into Scientology remained. Through these efforts, Scientology hoped to not only protect its reputation, but also secure its tax-exempt status, which had long been under scrutiny by the IRS. For several years, the infiltration went undetected. The Church's operatives were highly disciplined and operated with remarkable precision, using fake identities, elaborate cover stories, and sophisticated espionage techniques. They had successfully infiltrated some of the most secure agencies in the US government, and for a time, it seemed as though they would achieve their goal of erasing all incriminating records. However, in 1977, the operation began to unravel. The FBI had been investigating Scientology for unrelated reasons and stumbled upon evidence of the Church's covert activities. On July 8, 1977, the FBI launched a series of raids on Scientology offices in Washington, D.C. and Los Angeles, seizing thousands of documents that detailed the church's infiltration of government agencies. It was the largest raid in the Bureau's history and revealed the full extent of Operation Snow White. The fallout from the exposure of Operation Snow White was swift and severe. 11 high-ranking members of the Church of Scientology, including Mary Sue Hubbard, were indicted and later convicted of conspiracy against the US government. They were sentenced to prison terms, and the church itself faced massive public backlash and increased government scrutiny. However, L. Ron Hubbard, the mastermind behind the operation, managed to avoid legal consequences. He went into hiding shortly before the raids and spent the remainder of his life in seclusion, eluding any attempts to bring him to justice. Operation Snow White remains one of the most audacious and far-reaching conspiracies in modern history. It wasn't just an infiltration, it was a coordinated assault on the very institutions designed to uphold the rule of law. The operation demonstrated how a determined organization, using sophisticated espionage tactics, could manipulate and undermine the government from within. For the Church of Scientology, the consequences of Operation Snow White linger to this day. While the church continues to operate globally, its reputation has been permanently scarred by the exposure of the operation. The scandal also raised serious questions about the relationship between powerful organizations and government oversight. Could other groups attempt similar operations? And how vulnerable are government institutions to infiltration by those willing to subvert the system? Ultimately, Operation Snow White is a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power, the lengths to which some organizations will go to protect themselves, and the fragility of the systems we rely on to maintain transparency and accountability. Before we delve further into more revelations, we want to ask our viewers, what conspiracy theory do you find most plausible? Or perhaps, what mystery do you think still lurks in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you're intrigued by these stories, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with others who love a good mystery. Segment 4. The Dark Side of Prohibition. Government Poisoning Alcohol. As we continue, let's journey back to a darker chapter in American history, Prohibition. During this time, when the sale of alcohol was banned, the government took drastic measures to enforce this law. But in their zeal to curb drinking, they resorted to poisoning industrial alcohol, which was often stolen by bootleggers and sold as liquor. While the government's intention was to deter consumption, the result was far more sinister. Thousands of people died from alcohol poisoning, victims of a policy that went tragically awry. This grim episode serves as a stark reminder of how far governments can go in the name of public health and safety. As we wrap up this journey through some of history's most fascinating and mysterious events, we'd love to hear from you. Was there a topic we covered today that you'd like to see explored in more depth? Let us know in the comments below which story intrigued you the most, or if there's a new subject you'd like us to cover in a future video. Your suggestions are always welcome. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more captivating content. We have plenty of upcoming videos on even more intriguing topics, presented in a way you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Facts Intrigue.